Starting in again with head men's basketball coach Josh Schertz for our weekly basketball report. Coach, got a lot to talk about as always. We'll start just the other night. You host number 8 ranked and previously unbeaten Queens in here on Saturday afternoon, and really just an awesome overall experience for everybody involved. A great atmosphere. Come away with a 10-point victory. What were the keys to the victory for your guys?
Well, I think we did a really good job of of competing and fighting together. We knew it was going to take everybody. Queens is obviously a tremendously talented team. They've got great personnel, unbelievably athletic. I think they're very sound, on both sides of the ball in terms of what they do offensively and defensively, and they're an excellent rebounding team. So there's really there's a reason they're undefeated and top 10 in the country, because they're good at pretty much every area of the game. And so I thought the probably the key was our depth. If you look at the game, the way it kind of shook out, 4 of our 5 starters were in significant foul trouble. We had 3 guys that averaged double figures in Jarrell and Dorian and Curtis McMillian, that I think combined for like 22 points in that game. The 3 of them combined for 22 points, and so it was really, I thought, a great team win, because you saw guys like Emmanuel Terry, Paul Woodson, Curtis Webb, even though he didn't have great numbers, Tim Pierce, come in and really impact the game. Obviously, Luquan and Jarrell were terrific as well, but it was a really good team win, and thought the guys, we talked before the game about playing together, playing for one another, fighting together for 40 minutes and try to make plays down at the end, and I thought we did a really good job of competing and fighting, and obviously came away with a win against an excellent team.
Okay, and then one of the storylines of that game was Luquan Choice, obviously been probably one of the greatest shooters already played here, and he's still got a year left. Became the 4th player in program history to hit his 200th career three-pointer, and now he's 35 points away from 1,000 career points. So a lot of achievements coming really quick for Luquan Choice. So just talk about kind of the adjustment he's made this year, and to be going from being your primary scorer to being more of a facilitator, and just what he's meant for your offense this year and over the last couple of years.
Well, Lou's been a huge part of what we've accomplished over the years. I mean, he's to watch his growth from a freshman and to where he was last year as a sophomore. He became was our leading scorer last year, and as a freshman he was kind of a solid role player for us. As a sophomore, he was our leading scorer, and then this year, I think what I've been really proud of him is I think he's become a much better basketball player, and I think he's you would have probably quantified him as a shooter last year. First made 100 threes. Part of the way we played, we had a great point guard, Lorenzo Ross, and that allowed us to do some different things. And this year, with the way the personnel is, Luquan leads us in assists. He also usually guards the team's best player. He had to do what he did offensively, take on the challenge of guarding their best perimeter player in Rob Lewis. And then he was a guy that obviously distributes the ball and is getting downhill more. He's become a more versatile scorer, and he's a guy that offensively, I think now has a lot more ways to beat you, and he's become more consistent. I think it's an area he's still working to grow in, but he's become more consistent on the defensive side. And you see a lot of guys that are good players in our league that are good offensive players, really good defensive players. It's rare to have a guy that really does it on both sides of the ball. That's a very rare breed that is an elite offensive guy and comes down and really accepts the challenge of guarding an elite player on the other side of the ball. And Lou's really trying to morph into that. And he's been a huge part of our success over the last 2.5 years. He's a guy that I don't think he's undervalued. He was first team All-Region as a sophomore last year, but he's a guy that's one of the better wings in the country, and he's a guy that really wants to continue to get better. He's a guy that cares deeply, feels responsible to the group, and continues to work to become a more complete player. And I still think there's room for growth for him, but he's certainly light years better than he was last year in all components.
Well, let's look ahead to the week you got coming up here, which begins tomorrow night. Anderson coming into town. Obviously, a loaded history with Anderson at Tex Turner Arena, but turned the page since then, won 4 straight since then, won by 19 here against Anderson last year under first-year coach Jeff Brookman, and Jason Taylor is no longer with the program. So obviously they've seen, it seems like Anderson's had a little bit of struggles finding their footing in their first year under Jeff Brookman, and they're a young team, but talk about what you've seen in the challenge that Anderson's going to present.
Well, I think, looking at their team, I've been very impressed. I mean, you look at their record and you say, well, they're 3-5 in the league. So, but the reality is they could be, significantly better than that. Like most teams in the league, the margins are very small between being, 3-5 and 6-2, or 6-2 and 2-6, or, in our case, 8-0 or 5-3 or whatever. The margins are very narrow. You watch them play; they're very young. They play a predominant amount of freshmen and sophomores. I think Rakesh Taylor may be a junior, but I think he may be the only one of only 2 or 3 juniors that's in the rotation. Everybody else a freshman or sophomore. When you watch them, the thing that impressed me most is the energy they play with. They have a great bench. I mean, they're excited. You can tell every screen, every cut, they drive the ball hard. They've got good talent. Randall Shaw, averaging a shade under 18 points a game as a freshman. He's a terrific scorer, can do it in a lot of different ways. Maurice Howard, I really liked him last year as a point. He's kind of evolved and gotten even better. And I think he's playing with a lot of confidence. He's about as quick a point guard as in the league, maybe the quickest point guard in our league, him or Gerald Evans. I mean, just unbelievable speed. Rakesh Taylor's a guy inside that I think's a real physical, tough player. He wore us out last year at Anderson, just kicked our butts down there in the low block, and so we've got he's improved. I think they're a team that's really playing with a lot of energy. They were, you watch the Lenore Ryan game, they're up 80-72 with 2 minutes to go, and then they have some things go against them there down the stretch, and Darian Evans sticks a 3 with 7 seconds to go to beat him. That shot doesn't go in. They beat Lenore Ryan at Lenore Ryan, and everybody looks at it differently. But the thing in this league is, we're in a game-to-game business, and everybody, you and I have talked about this. Everybody's got really good players. Everybody's got really good coaches. Everybody has good scheme. Everybody works hard, and so you have to be ready to kind of meet those challenges, and that's going to be our task. I mean, it's if we're at all thinking about what happened last week, then we're going to miss our next turn at bat. Everything, and from a focus standpoint, from our guys, then has to be on Anderson, because they got really good talent. Again, Jeff's is a terrific coach, and again, they you can just tell watching them play with great energy, great emotion. They're young. They're not sometimes when teams 3-5 in the league, maybe they're beat down a little bit. These guys are not. You can watch them play against LR and their starters and their bench and how into it they are. He's done a great job continuing the great culture that I think Jason Taylor established there at Anderson.
Well, and then on Saturday, you turn around and head to Salisbury, North Carolina for a game against Catawba, a team who's been without one of the best scorers in the conference last year. If correct me if I'm wrong, but he's missed the entire season. Mm-hmm. And they're still sitting at 5-3 in conference play. So, and obviously it's a challenge going in there to Salisbury. I know you don't like to look ahead too much, but talk about that game too.
Well, for me, preliminarily, my assistants are obviously on that one, but watching them, I mean, they are. Rob's team's really been beat up. It's amazing for them to be 5-3 in the league. He's done probably, in my opinion, the best job in the conference in terms of coaching when you look at it to this stage, because KJ Arrington, who I think's was as good a wing as there was in the conference last year, tears ACL in the summer, misses the entire season. They had one of the best freshmen in the league. First 4 games, Malik Constantine's averaging basically a double-double. He breaks his foot, is out for the season. They lose, they lose 2 starters, and here they are 5-3 in the league, and battling. You watch them play. I think they have obviously good players. I mean, Jameel Taylor's a stud. Jaron Morrison's a stud. They got Rakeem Brown back, who tore his ACL last year, who missed time. Very quick, dynamic point guard. Rob does a good job with his kids. You watch them again. They play exceptionally hard, well coached. Will do a lot of good things, bring a lot of different challenges to the table. They got good inside play. Troy Morrison in there is is a really big guy. Troy Warren, I'm sorry, in there is a big guy, and 6'9", 250, and Julian Sampa. So they've got good personnel, very similar to last year, but playing without 2 starters, 5-3 in the league, as you said, and again are a play away. They lose a 1-point game to Mars Hill from being 6-2, and they've had other games right down the wire. I mean, they're very close to being 6-2, 7-1 in the league, and despite all the injuries and adversity. So credit to them, to their program, their staff. They've been able to fight through that stuff. That'll be a very difficult game. It's every week in this league is incredibly challenging, and so we, Anderson here Wednesday will present challenges, and obviously go on the road against a really good Catawba team on Saturday will present challenges. That's why in this league, you have all these games, and people think, the game's going to turn out like this, and it turns out completely different than what people think because of how close it is. It's basically even. So every time you go in there, you gotta figure out a way to get the job done, and that's what we're going to have to do here on Wednesday and Saturday.
And we haven't done this in a while, Coach, but the last question I'm going to ask you for this week's kind of recap is going to talk about just assess where your team's at right now. How's this team been different than what you thought in the preseason so far? Now it still feels like there's so much left, but we are, I guess, about near the halfway point. So just kind of assess where you're at and where your team's at.
Well, I think we've had some moments. I think we've got truth. We've played a difficult schedule. So we have truth. I think we know when we play well that we're capable of playing at a really high level. We also know that there's a long way to go. I would say still need to be more consistent in doing our jobs. On both sides of the ball, our execution can be better on both ends of the floor, particularly defensively. We got to stop fouling so much, and do a better job on the 3-point line for sure. But I think this group, I've enjoyed coaching them as much as any group I've had here because we've had this obviously a lot, but they care deeply. They try hard. They want to be good. We're having to deal with, we knew going in, some deficits in terms of point guard play and different things, but we've kind of been able to piecemeal it together, and like most teams that are, I think, you want, if you're going to be really good, you got to like it when it's toughest, and these guys like the games where they feel like it's the toughest. They've always responded and played well. Doesn't mean we've always won them, but they've always they've played their best when the situation's toughest. So halfway in, I never project records or whatever because you never can, but I'm pleased with the progress we're making, and the key for us moving forward is understand, that we've won, 12 games and we've won 8 conference games, and in of itself, that's enough to get us sitting home in March. We go 8-14 in the league, 12-16 overall. We're sitting at home in March. So everything that we want to do is in front of us, and it's about how much we get better and how much better we can get from here to March and stay on that track. And we've got a lot of guys back from last year that we were playing a really high level in January, and maybe we didn't get as better from mid-February to mid-March, and so hopefully we've learned from that experience and that we stay kind of focused and understand what we got to do to get better day to day so we can be at our best when it matters most in March.